resilience. So thank you for bringing this example here. Now the next panelist is Dr. Sanjay Srivastava. He is Head of Disaster Risk Reduction Division at United Nations SCAP, based in Thailand, Bangkok. He was supposed to join in person, but he got some injury in his leg, so he will be joining online. Hope he's already joined. Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Sanjay ji, but we can't see you. Please.
Yeah. Can you see me now?
Yes, perfectly, perfectly. So welcome,
Okay,
welcome
okay.
on board, and over to you, Dr. Sanjay Srivastava ji.
Yeah.
And
Thank you,
the request is for the time limit, as we have
Yes,
large
yes.
number of panelists. Yeah, over to you.
Right, sure, sir. Sure. Thank you, Professor Gupta, and my sincere apology for not being able to be there with you in person. And I realized that I'm the only person in the panel who came from the UN. So I thought I would like to share with you some UN perspective on this specific issue. So here I would like to, my key message, the first one is as the professional who are in the process of communicating the risk to the different stakeholders. We believe there are two important part of the science which is key. One is what we call translational science. We need to translate the hazard, the science of hazard, in terms of the impact. So unless we communicate the impact to the community, to the stakeholders, to from the community of early warning to the end users, I think this is what is uh, one of the challenge which we have been struggling now. It's closing the gap. So the first is translational science to communicate from risk to impact. The second part is what is called anticipation science. Anticipation science is to communicate the policy actions from hazard to risk, risk to policy response. So, risk to policy response has to be translated through anticipation science. So, if we are able to communicate the risk with translational and anticipatory approaches of the science, I think this will we will able to bridge many gaps that exist today. Here in this context, I just wanted to cite two, three examples from our UN experiences. One is in 2015, there was a global focus on inequality, world becoming highly unequal, and particularly in the middle income countries, the fastest growing economies, at the same time becoming more and more unequal society. So there was variety of policy options, focus on education, health, focus on all kind of the development paradigms. But what was missing there is the disaster resilience. So we used what I said is translation and the anticipatory science. We brought out a theme study, how disaster contributes or widens the inequality by a certain percent. We did it a very analytical GCM equilibrium model. And this debate, disaster was flagged as one of the drivers of inequality, particularly in high growth middle income countries of Asia and Pacific. This attracted global attention. This year, the International Day of Disaster Risk Reduction, inequality was one of the key. So what we did, we brought this as a policy agenda from the science of anticipation and translation. My second example I would like to cite was the IPCC report, Assessment Report 6. It spoke a great deal of complex, compound, and cascading risk
Doctor, you are
in a
losing
mount.
your voice in between. Sometimes
Oh,
it goes too low.
oh, is it? Okay. Okay, let me
Yes,
try.
now it is okay.
Okay. So the another example of the translational science was the IPCC report, Assessment Report 6. This is more relevant, particularly in a mountainous context, the theme of this WCDM. Mountainous context, disasters are often complex, compound with a cascading impact. Managing this kind of risk is always difficult. Most of our professional experiences have been managing hazard, risk, and hazard, vulnerability, and risk. But when it becomes complex, compound, and cascading, the challenges lies in making the best of the science, what we call the scenario analysis, context analysis, to suggest the policy action. The recent GLOF in Sikkim is one of the example, the high precipitation cloudburst that triggered GLOF. Downstream, it destroyed the critical infrastructure of hydroelectric power plant, 1.2 megawatt. That is a very important asset. So we need some kind of a early warning for all type of approach. At the same time, built by resilient infrastructure as well as infrastructure for resilience coupled together. So these two approaches from translational science to anticipatory science are very. My last point is the CAP commission session this year in 2025. There was a lot of focus on the climate action, particularly we had a session on race to zero, and that was the whole Asia Pacific voice. In race to zero, uh, the 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 issue of adaptation, particularly the climate change adaptation, somehow was not getting the attention that it deserves. We brought out a report called Asia Pacific Disaster Report. We brought a idea of translational science, a just transitions, not there only in energy, but it's also there in the adaptation and the think resilience in terms of building infrastructure. So with these two policy actions, we could able to inspire a policy think tank of Asia Pacific regions to act when we talk on race to resilience. In race to resilience, adaptation with just a transition, adaptation, think of resilience is very important. So at a high level, global policy agenda is important that we as a scientific community, as academia, use translational and anticipatory science and communicate policy messages without any ambiguity, with a lot of clarity, evidence, inspire the policy decisions in different countries. So thank you, Professor Gupta. These are few words I thought I must share with my colleagues.
Thank you very much, Dr. Srivastav. You very nicely brought the UN perspective. And I think many of us are aware of the UN SCAPS initiative and jointly with many partners, RIMES and others. And UN SCAP has a special center located in New Delhi in India
Yeah,
on
right.
science and technology. And your thoughts also sync directly with the recent initiatives in India as well. The new science, technology and innovation policy in India. Now we are working for a DRR and climate change vertical within that how do we utilize and what you suggested that on transnational research and anticipatory research. And I think that is very important because if we have a foresight, if we understand what kind of risk we are going to uh, uh, meet in future, our preparedness would be much better. So thank you very much for your deliberation and being able to participate, and wish you the recovery soon, and maybe in future we'll meet you in person. So thank you. And over to the next speaker. He is coming from Australia. So this panel is very rich in the Australian cooperation with us. He's coming from Charles Darwin University, and he's leading disaster management program there. Over to you, Dr. Surjan. And this time, as for all the panelists, is for you.
Thank you very much, Professor Gupta, for welcoming me. Namaskar, Jai Hind. My name is Akhilesh Surjan. I am originally from the heart of India, non-government organizations, as well as with the UNDP. I studied here in since India 2005 with a couple of organizations living overseas for the first 10 years. I lived in Japan, as well as with the UNDP, with the United Nations University since 2005, and for the last 9 living years overseas for the first 10 years. Working with the I lived in Japan and worked with the United Nations University and Kyoto University. After 10 years, I am visiting the city of Dehradun. Last I visited was, I think, 2013. Where I was invited after 10 years as a lead visiting the city of Dehradun to disseminate the findings of the IPCC 2013, where I was invited. It is as a lead author of IPCC to disseminate the findings of the and safe, and also a lot of young and youth students and volunteers, I guess, in some way they are volunteering for this conference. And my topic is about volunteering, and I'm presenting case studies from Australia and Japan, and I'm sure they are very much applicable in this part of the world as well. For the last couple of days in this conference, we have learned that disasters are getting more severe and impactful, be it earthquake or tsunami, landslide or flood or cyclone or bushfire, etc. And we are facing these risks not only increasingly intense, but also they are bringing with them compounding and cascading effects, as it is also highlighted by the previous speaker. And all the first responders who are present in this room, they will realize that they get overwhelmed with the frequency of the events which are occurring in parallelly in different parts of the same country as well as in different parts of the world. And I think we'll be hearing from the NDRF later on about how overwhelmed they get when they are, events which are occurring in different parts of the country requiring our urgent attention. And the question is, how do we develop our current DRR approaches and strategies to tackle the future risk? And what role does the society at large should be ready to play? Because our response agencies cannot take care of everyone at all the times because of the more frequent and more intense disasters. And because disasters do not know the borders, so does the volunteers. Disaster volunteers come from various walks of life. They belong to different age groups, and they serve most of the time their own community, their neighborhood, their own village, town, or city. But from time to time, they also go to serve the other cities or states within their own country. They sometimes also go internationally. So the project I did, funded by the Australia-Japan Foundation, was to capture the experiences and challenges of the volunteers in these two countries and identify areas of mutual learning and enhance sustainable volunteering pre- and post-disaster setting. In Japan, the volunteering system existed for over several thousand years. They have a very specific word. One is suibodan, which is water volunteer. So these are the volunteers which are well trained for responding to the flooding situations, and shobodan, which is a fire volunteer. And Kobe earthquake of 1995 was a watershed moment because of the Kobe earthquake. When people saw the images on the television, about 1.3 million people from all parts of the Japan flooded the city of Kobe to volunteer. They had no training, they had no preparedness, they had no experience. And because 1.3 million people rushing to the disaster-affected area, it has put a lot of pressure on the local resources. In Tohoku earthquake and tsunami of March 2011, more than 500,000 volunteers served within the first 4 months. And this time, they were more organized, and the whole volunteering movement was channelized through NGOs. Use of internet was also very helpful. And then there was a Kumamoto earthquake in April 2016, where a volunteering platform was formed in partnership with the government, local government. And in the flood in Mabi in 2018, there was a volunteer center established. There were guidelines, registration system, etc. was established. So Japanese experience actually, shows us that there is a accumulated experience to manage ad hoc or spontaneous volunteers. And Japanese NGOs and local governments now are playing key role in managing the volunteers and various tasks they perform. These volunteers are mostly untrained, but some on-site training is provided by the more experienced people before the volunteers actually go and help the local communities in different things. And most of the volunteering peaks immediately after the disaster. Soon after the disaster, first week, second week, third week, there are a lot of people who want to volunteer, but the volunteering support is required over several months. The formal or long-term volunteering is little uncommon in Japan. These are some of the photos. For example, this is evacuation shelter where people who lost their homes in tsunamis or earthquake, they are taking shelter here and they are served by the volunteers. And you can see the volunteers are doing cleanup job. They are also serving food and they are wearing boots, and some of the volunteers are also providing technical support in the form of laborers. In Australia, the volunteering is a way of life for many people in the community. Volunteer fire brigades were established around the middle of the 19th century, and after that the civil defense was established in 50s, and then state emergency services were formed in each of the states. And each of these state emergency service has a very limited core staff and a large volunteer staff. But these volunteers are very formally trained. Their recruitment process is as if you are applying for a job and you have to clear a lot of different formalities, including police clearance, security clearance, etc. And once they are there, the recruitment is done. They are also trained, and there are also a number of trainings are done on a regular basis. In the meetings, some of the volunteers are organized on a monthly basis to keep them, to retain them, to retrain them, etc., etc. However, this formal system of volunteering is seeing challenges. We had more than 400,000 volunteers in 2010, and by 2021 it is reduced to about half. And alternative forms of volunteering is emerging. For example, people would like to do digital volunteering, skill-based volunteering, etc., etc. And it is mostly happening in the post-disaster phase. Volunteers are beacons of hope, be it in Japan or Australia or any other parts of the world, but volunteering is diminishing, especially in the developed part of the world, while it is recognized that they exist in both formal and non-formal settings. So while volunteering is a fundamental for realizing the vision of community-based disaster risk reduction, we have to make volunteering trendy, and I'm very happy that these young students are volunteering at this conference, and I'm sure they will one day stand up to volunteer when the disaster strikes in their region. We have to make volunteering inclusive, and localization of volunteering is a must, and I think that is where civil defense, state emergency services can play a major role. And we have to make volunteering a purpose of life so that people can build very strong mental and social
disaster management. And when we say enabling this kind of discussion globally across the boundaries, and that is the reason conference on topic of volunteering disaster management. Basically, that also enabling this kind of discussion across the boundaries. Good theme that has emerged volunteering. Basically, that also last 10 years or so, that the countries which were primarily focusing on technology that has emerged. Now they also started talking about volunteering. Over the 2014. A bilateral talk with the government of Japan delegation, and then they told that they want to learn the community-based initiatives, community-led initiatives, and that was a surprise for me that time. But now, in fact, there are a lot to learn from each other, and this is something India has also recently started Apada Mitra, and that is one of the successful schemes we are talking about. So thank you, Dr. Surjan, for bringing excellent examples to this forum. Now over to the next panelist, Brigadier Upendra Pal Singh. In fact, Army has multiple roles in disaster risk reduction in the entire cycle. many times we see on the media the roles in response, our roles in relief, but they also have huge role in mitigation and preparedness as well. And I also recall that eco task force that was created by Indian Army to replant and revegetate the difficult terrains where normal people cannot reach. So over to Brigadier Saab for your deliberation, and the time is for you is 8 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished chair, co-chair, panelists, and august audience. It's a matter of privilege and honor for me to be speaking in 6th World Congress on Disaster Management. And I'll be dwelling on the role of Indian Armed Forces. Why I'm calling it Indian Armed Forces, because though being from Indian Army, I would be addressing the role and the contribution which has been given by all the 3 services, Indian Army, Indian Air Force, and Indian Navy. And before I dwell further, let me start with a caveat that I do not have those academic qualifications worth emulating as my co-panelist sitting over here and the august gathering which is there in the hall. But I have a lot of experience under the belt. Experience of physically participating in such disaster relief operations and also supervising such operations in staff. So let us first see the vulnerability profile of the nation. We as a nation, we are a vast country, 7th largest, with a very big coastline, more than 5,600 kilometers, jetting into Indian Ocean. And you name a terrain, we have it. We have deserts, we have mountainous, high-altitude areas, the plains of Punjab, riverine terrain, delta regions, salt plains of Run of Kutch, Deccan Plateau. So because of this diversity, there is a lot of adverse disasters which happen in our nation. If you see the data, out of 36 states and union territory in the country, 27 of them are disaster prone. And Indian Armed Forces, by virtue of our operational task, we are present in all nook and corners of the nation. So inadvertently, we become one of the first responders along with the affected community affected by the disaster. So let us revisit the disaster management journey as it started in India. It all started with the Famine Relief Code, which was a direct consequence of the Great Famine of Deccan Plateau in 1876-78. Thereafter, a scarcity division was made following the Great Bengal disaster or the Bengal famine, which happened in 1943. The first step, or I would say the first baby step which our nation took towards disaster management was the formation of National Disaster Management Division, but it remained under the Ministry of Agriculture in 1947. Now, beyond 1947, because of political, social, security, and economic consideration, not much effort was made in this direction till as late as 1976, when 42nd Constitutional Amendment was passed, and 2 critical articles were passed in that. The trigger for our policymakers came in 1984 December with the Bhopal gas tragedy. After the tragedy, 4 critical acts were passed, and it set the stage for our nation to start thinking towards disaster management. And finally, in 1995, a division was created, that National Center for Disaster Management, which presently has transformed post-2005 into National Institute of Disaster Management. Though our policymaker was still in the drafting stage, but the states which were affected critically by the disaster, they took initiative and came up with their respective disaster management document led by Gujarat post-deadly 2001 earthquake. And as we all know, that in 2005, the Disaster Management Act was passed and various bodies were formed to look into this aspect. Now, in the international arena, a lot of activities were also being done. What I want to highlight over here is the Oslo guideline, which actually stimulate or which actually permits armies to carry out disaster relief operations in foreign land. So use of foreign military and civil defense assets in disaster relief with the core principle of humanity, impartiality, and neutrality respecting the sovereignty of the state. Now, this is the provision which Indian Armed Forces use when there is disaster strikes in the neighborhood. And followed by that was the Hugo framework. During this time, our nation was thickly into formulating a policy, and last was the Sendai framework, which came in 2015 till 2030. And the 4 provisions which it lays down is to basically understand the disaster risk, strengthen the disaster governance, and invest in disaster reduction measures and enhance the resilience, and also enhance the preparedness level by building back better in recovery, rehabilitation, and reconstruction phases. So let us revisit what is the primary and the secondary role of Indian Armed Forces. Ladies and gentlemen, the primary role remains fixed, that we have to defend the national borders against external aggression and maintain territorial integrity. However, in the secondary role which has been legislated for the Indian Armed Forces is to provide humanitarian support and aid to civil authority during any calamity or natural disaster. So culling out from here, various roles which Indian Armed Forces have performed over a period of time is rescue and relief operations, including search and rescue, medical, logistical support, engineering support, and the specialist support because of the specialists we have under the belt. Now let's see the strengths of Indian Armed Forces over the period. We are a multi-domain organization with proficiencies in all the domains of land, air, sea, space, and cyber. Indian Army being the 4th largest strong force, we are virtually present in all the nooks and corners of the country, so inadvertently we become the first responders during any calamity. We have a phenomenal airlift capability with Indian Air Force, and we have a phenomenal beaching capability with Indian Navy and the maritime reach. So this permits this force to even approach those disaster-hit areas, even when the ports and the airports have been destroyed by the disaster. The cyber capability, we are proficient in that, and we have a phenomenal track record of what we have done, which I'll be alluding also subsequently in my presentation. The logistic infrastructure the Indian Army has, or Indian Armed Forces has, is phenomenal, which we have the capacity to store, have strategic mobility, and also last-mile delivery, which can be made into those affected areas which the communications have been broken down. We are always trained, and we have quick reaction capability, and the technology modernization which is happening over a period of time has empowered us with satellite imagery, drones, communications, and surveillance means. Last but not the least, the international cooperation. Now this is very important. All exercises we do with foreign army, we make it a point to dwell into HADR operations, and as I speak to you in front of you, there are foreign exercises which are going on in Pune with Sri Lanka and over here with Nepal. So in all such exercises, we make it a point that we dwell and get the best practices out of each other, especially in this domain of humanitarian assistance. Now, what is the legal framework? Ladies and gentlemen, we are guided by these 3 fundamental documents when we go in for aid to civil authority, which is a document of 1970, and it permits us to carry out certain actions as flashed on the slide. And other 2 documents also guide as to how to go about such duty. Even post the Disaster Management Act of 2005, Army or Indian Armed Forces continue to be requisitioned under the gambit of Aid to Civil Authority 1970, and we are an on-call agency, though a formal document was documented before the act came in 2002, which still guides the Indian Armed Forces. So if you see, okay. I've been told to wind up early, so I will just flash that post-2005, there were certain 3 organizations which are looking after the disaster management, but post-2005, the special organizations have been carried out, have been created, and Indian Armed Forces still is guided by the ACA Act of 1970. These are the structures which have been devised under which the assistance is rendered to the affected communities, and various stakeholders which are involved in the civil domain are flashed on this slide. However, when it comes to Indian Armed Forces, we are utilized in all the phases, that is pre-disaster, during disaster, and post-disaster phases. The certain assistance which are carried out and given to the affected community, what I want to bring out over here is whenever any column is mobilized, it is mobilized with various specialists and experts, and various equipment is also mobilized along with the column. Now, if you see the track route, virtually all calamities which has hit the nation, Indian Armed Forces have practically been involved in rest and rescue operations and HADR operations. And the assistance which we have rendered in last 2 years is as flashed on the slide. We have given 54 columns, rescuing around 31,000 citizens. Now the topic of the day is capacity building. I'll not dwell on this slide, but what I want to say that Indian armed forces, we have 10 ecological territorial army battalions which are deployed in 34 locations all over the country, and they are doing a yeoman service of plantation. Approximately 9 crore trees have been planted. We have been into Ganga cleaning projects, Amrit Sarovar. And apart from the ecological TA battalions, we also undertake something known as Operation Sadbhavna in insurgency-affected areas of J&K and northeastern state, where certain ecological conservative projects are implemented by Indian Armed Forces.
Brigadier Pal, can we?
Right.
Can we please?
So as I conclude, I would just say the international outreach which we have done so far, that not only in the national arena, but Indian Armed Forces have also been helping the victims which have been affected by the disaster all over the world, starting from Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Myanmar, China, and Turkey. And last, not the least, the assistance which has been rendered by the armed forces during COVID, wherein we have evacuated 890 citizens, created 400 hospital beds and ICUs, and given phenomenal amount of oxygen support to the nation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was a pleasure speaking in front of such august gathering.
Thank you.
And though I have taken more time than was allotted to me, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brigadier Pal. We'll directly move to the next speaker, Ms. Safina Beg. She is coming from the Jammu Kashmir, district of Baramulla. So she will be presenting the district perspective. She is working as district officer on disaster management. And the most important is that she is representing the women power of this panel. So that's very important. In the beginning, we spoke about the women leadership. So over to you, Ms. Safina.
Thank you very much. Respected chair, co-chair, dignitaries, organizers, and future environment saviors, I feel honored to stand here with you as a spokesperson of Kashmir. I thank the organizer for this important event, for this opportunity to be in an environment that is similar to what we have in Kashmir. Sir, I'm not an expert on this subject, but I'm someone who is deeply connected with grassroots level. Standing here today, I am reminded of devastating earthquake of 2004, flood in 2014 in Kashmir. My special thanks to everyone who supported us in difficult times. And the most credible institution of our country, Army. Special thanks to Army. I want, applause for them. I will start with a quote. It is in Kashmiri, a quote from Sufi saint. His name is Nund Rishi. Unposh till one posh. That means food will last as long as forest lasts. Sir, whatever I'm going to say is based on my personal experience. I'm here to laud the voice of Kashmir. We should summon all our human, technical, and material resources and chart out for reaching a policy of climate management and environmental protection. We should summon all our moral, environment, technical, and management resources to ensure that in respect of our future does not repent our past. A philosopher has rightly said that those who do not realize and correct the mistakes of their past will be condemned to relive it. Today's discourse has to be on the power trio of innovation, collaboration, and communication. We must understand the challenges and possibilities of ecosystem of mountains and valley. We must realize that our future in surrounding like this depends on our deep moral commitment to pool our resources. I hope a gathering like this, the present one here, today marks a historical landmark in our committed struggle to ensure that environmentally otherwise we stand firm and committed not only to preserve our present, but also to redeem our past. Let us together pool our moral, material, technical, and financial resources to ensure that our dream and our future is even better than our past. Kashmir, as you know, with its majestic peaks, verdant valleys, exemplifies the delicate balance between nature and human habitation. However, this balance is under threat. Rising temperature, erratic rainfall, natural disasters are challenging the resilience of our mountain communities. The need for tailored solutions that consider the unique vulnerabilities and strength of these ecosystems is paramount. As a representative from Jammu and Kashmir, I share the story of communities whose lives are intertwined with the mountains. Our farmers, our artisans, our shepherds are not only just victims of climate change, they are the stewards of these ecosystems. It is our responsibility to empower them with tools and knowledge to adapt sustainably while preserving the rich biodiversity that defines our mountain. The question arises in my mind, who do as a society we failed? I'm sorry to say, but I think as a society we failed in combating the climate change threat. One of the primary failures lies in the slow pace of global cooperation and the implementation of comprehensive measures. Despite mounting evidence of urgent need to address climate issues, geopolitical differences, economic interests, and short-term thinking have hindered the development of unified strategies. The stories from Kashmir are echoed in the narratives of countless mountain communities worldwide. It is imperative to amplify these voices and foster a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of our ecosystem. Let our gathering today be more just than a platform for discourse. Let it be a catalyst for action. So, together with the innovation as our guide, collaboration as our strength, and communication as our beacon, we can safeguard our mountain and ensure a sustainable legacy for generations to come. I profoundly and sincerely thank you, all of you, for coming together as an act of hope. Now I will briefly suggest, because I can't go into details, limited time is allotted. So what we can do, there are few suggestions. Collaborative research initiatives, communication for knowledge transfer, inclusive technological solutions, cross-sector collaboration, culture preservation through innovation, community-based disaster preparedness, and I will focus on this because this is my topic. As chairperson of the largest district of Jammu and Kashmir with 402 panchayats and also strategically very important district, I have dealt with this issue during COVID pandemic. I'm sorry, I have some issue in my throat. Communication infrastructure development, ecotourism promotion, capacity building through collaboration. I think the community participation is the most effective element to achieve sustainability in dealing with natural and man-made disasters. We should adopt a new strategy.
Ms. Safina, can we?
Yes, I will take 2 minutes. That is people directly in planning. Vulnerable people we should involve vulnerable people directly in planning and implementation of mitigation, response, and recovery measures. Three-tier system, the Panchayati Raj institution, we should involve Panchayati Raj institution, both in disaster risk reduction and post-disaster management is very important. We must integrate disasters preparedness into core system, starting from the grassroots level. So that is my point. But anyways, Jammu and Kashmir government has emphasized need for the effective disaster risk reduction, that is through Shirkat program, and we have started it from district Pulwama. But it is important to make disaster resilience an inherent part of our community disaster. What I want to convey in simple language, that even if we have good policies, resources, expert advice, but if we don't train our grassroots workers at the grassroots level, because they are the frontline workers, we have to train them, we have to empower them, we have to reward them. I just want to share a simple example and very inspiring story. Just give me 2 minutes more because I'm from the northwest of India. You can't ignore me.
We have two
only 2 minutes.
To talk.
2 minutes only, and the only lady, someone covered head. So, anyways, you know what happened? In 2019, I was present in a award function, Padam Award. There was a lady, old lady. She was a casual labor in forest department, age 112. She received Padam Award for her contribution to Mother Earth. Kya tha uska? She planted trees. She planted trees, on national highway. And with bare foots, nothing, illiterate. See her contribution. If she can do it, why not we? we can also do it. So I want to take a pledge and conclude this. So let us pledge, all of us, let us pledge that every tree that falls for our need, we should plant 2 trees. Thank you very much. मैं डरती हूँ, मुझे जीने दो, मुझे मेरे हाल में जीने दो, मेरे बच्चे मेरे दुश्मन हैं, ये बांझ गरी के माहिर हैं, कब मेरे राज को समझेंगे. Thank you very much.
Thank you, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. And the only comment, not the compliment, the salute to women power. So let us have a round of applause for 2 women in the panel. And now, directly requesting Dr. O.P. Singh, the co-chair, to give a brief summary, and then we'll be requesting the other co-chair to share the points emerging for the future.
The most difficult task to summarize the outstanding speakers that we had, including chairman, we had 6 panelists from all over the globe, and it was a very tough decision because all of them were outstanding. And if I have to summarize in 1 sentence, all I can say is that all the speakers said only 1 sentence, and that was that building resilience is not a personal choice, but it is a collective imperative. Everybody has to go for building the capacity at its own level. I'm privileged to act as co-chair here on this crucial theme. This session definitely is serving as an invaluable platform to explore innovative strategies at the local level, exchange knowledge, and foster collaborative efforts that perhaps will elevate capacity building in all aspects, be it preparedness, be it response or recovery strategies across the world in different communities. And as we delve into the complexities of the whole thing, we look forward to, at the end, we look forward to have a very, very engaging takeaway from this particular conference. Friends, the chair introduced the subject in a beautiful manner. All that he said was that we need to have capacity building at every level. And it's a 2-way process, which was something very illuminating for all of us. The panelists, particularly from France, Ms. Gracia, from Australia, Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed, Brigadier Upendra Pal Singh, Dr. Sanjay Srivastava online, Dr. Akhilesh again from Australia, Ms. Safina Beg from J&K. All these panelists were equivocal in stressing the fact that the capacity building is very, very essential. And some of them talked about the communication strategy. Communication is something which we need to understand while we are discussing risk and understanding disasters. Dr. Iftikhar Ahmed, he talked about his experiences based on his various approaches, and he probably said that local knowledge had to be synthesized with global know-how, and listening is much more important than talking. And he gave examples of Fiji and Bangladesh, which was very, very relevant. Mr. Torres from Ecuador, he also talked about 2017 7.8 earthquake, and probably he talked about the proper use of bamboo, which is so, so important. In fact, in India also, when I was heading NDRF, we had a battalion based in Pune, and we're still having that. And we used to develop a lot of indigenous materials out of that surplus things. So that is something which are very important for all of us to know. Dr. Sanjay Srivastava spoke from Thailand online, and he talked about the UN perspective to capacity building, which was very essential, translational science and anticipatory science, about which the chair also elaborated a little bit. Dr. Akhilesh Surjan, he talked about the challenges of emerging management volunteers. We know that how the volunteers are so important. And I had my personal experience in NDRF that we had seen those volunteers working day in and day out. I'm talking of 2014 Srinagar flood, which I led myself personally from the front, or I talk about Nepal earthquake in 2015, where we had no dearth of volunteers, and they came, but we need to institutionalize the system of volunteers in our country, which is so badly required. And he talked about Japan, tsunami, Australia. So these are very essential examples to listen to. Brigadier Upendra Pal Singh was fabulous in his approach. He talked about the entire vulnerability profile of the country, talked about how the role of Indian armed forces. I have seen myself being associated with NDRF. I know how Indian armed forces are doing human service to the country, whether it's humanitarian assistance or whether it's during the COVID time or anything. The first responder, though technically could be anyone, but Army has always been in the forefront. Whether you talk of Kedarnath tragedy of 2013, or you talk of Srinagar urban flood, or you talk of Nepal earthquake in 2015. I was closely associated with General Sandhu when I was there in Nepal to tackle the earthquake. And last but not the least, Madam Safina Beg was a district worker at grassroots level. And she also talked about earthquake of Jammu and Kashmir in 2004, as well as Srinagar flood of 2014. Friends, we all know that disasters threaten to become a major reversal to human and economic progress. We don't have to deny that. And particularly the area where we are living, South Asia, that is facing the wrath of natural disasters with greater frequency and with greater intensity and scale. And that is why we have to be very, very alert, and we have to build our capacity at any cost. I wouldn't like to go because the time is very short and we have another co-chair to say this, but I'm really thankful, and I see the people listening to us so attentively that it makes the point that capacity building is so important for all of us when we delve into the issues of disaster management. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. O.P. Singh. Very meticulously, very systematically, very timely. We know that you headed NDRF, so how systematically the things are operated. So wonderfully, and thanks for making this wonderful. Now over to the next co-chair. For points for the future, we'll try to take one or two questions if the time permits, but we'll decide once the future points are read by the co-chair.
Good afternoon, dignitaries on the dais and off the dais and the fellows in the room. It was a very interactive session, very interesting also, which also summarized by my fellow co-chair. We had a spectrum of speakers across the globes and very different dimensions they put to the thing, a common thing, capacity building. Yesterday, I was again, you can understand this subject to the fact that yesterday I was in Goa and having a brainstorming workshop on this same topic in the risk in high mountains, where we decided to do the many technical things, including the need identification for new sensors in the satellites. But finally, at the end of the day, everyone came out to this point, then how to communicate with the communities, how to sensitize the communities. And today, and then the very next day, I'm standing before you and deliberating on this topic. So right now, we have very clearly emerged three things. One is a human face of the disaster. By the people, for the people, we are approaching this kind of thing, where we are seeing the inclusiveness, how we can take the things in inclusive, coming from us to they or we. Convergence of all these terms, so bringing into the philosophy of the capacity building. And more importantly, the effective communication. We are looking forward that innovative way to communicate with the communities, societies at a large and locally very specifically. This communication must be not in a preaching mode, but a way that it can be understood by the local communities. And through the local resources, local expertise available. This is a third method. Third dimension we are looking for that, how to develop, like we have in India, Abda Mitra, and many times these volunteers. These could be a method of communicating also, not at the time of event of the disaster. That more importantly, the point came as a women and empowerment to the society, how to deal with the disaster, risk, developing resilience, and adaptation strategies. So these are the basic elements of the human face which we can carry further from this point. But interestingly, on the methods part, we are looking for very interestingly on the communication which is with the human face as well as the tool also in the capacity building and participatory action research when you are dealing with the communities. So how to build these two things into the methods and the tools is very important. And the training of trainers or the volunteers in capacity building at the large when the main system is not in place. That time their roles is very important to conduct various activities and operations. But very important thing which emerged from this discussion was the locally available natural resource can be a very effective tool to develop resilience and the adaptation to the disasters. And if you talk about the science, then transition sites and science communication before, much before that any event, that people are ready and they have a readiness or a preparedness in mind existing that these are the impacts and we can tackle them in which way. So in that way, we have to build a capacity of the grassroots institutions which came very properly today. And the entire philosophy must revolve around the local context, and this is very much required as a feedback mechanism for the top to down or bottom to top approaches. So in that way, this convergence is important when we talk about these communications, effectiveness, and preparedness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Co-Chair Professor Subrat Sharma. I think very nicely you identified the key points. In fact, the panel is facing dual pressure. One is that we have already encroached the lunchtime, but the panel was so rich that we had to do, and we were greatly supported by the audience because the learned experts and the delegates are here, and almost 2 p.m. And they were here. So that shows that the interest in the subject of capacity building. So thank you so much for joining. We know that there are certain very igniting questions or igniting points to share, but managing the dual pressure, on one side, we are being asked to close the session. On the other side, there are issues emerging as feedback and reflections. So I would suggest that we utilize the food court for this knowledge exchange as a follow-up of this session. So thank you very much, my all fellow panelists and the co-chairs and the people traveling across the continents to join and make this session rich, and each and everyone who is present in this hall, because this shows that how much importance we are giving to the subject of capacity building, and let us work to bring a transformation in our approach to capacity building. So thank you very much, and now we'll close this session. Thank you.
Let's give them a good round of applause. Every one of them traveled thousands or hundreds of miles to be here. They carried a lot of their experience, their hearts, treasured it, and have shared before us. Thank you so much for that. I would like to request some of our dignitaries to come and present the mementos. May I request Lieutenant General Ravi Shankar ji and also Major General Patnaik ji to please come up and present the mementos. Also Dr. Kalachan Shain, and then Brigadier Ashok Abeji, please come, and Professor Rima Pant, and Professor Narpinder Singh ji, and Professor N.P. Singh. It's a high-powered group. We are getting the high-powered dignitaries to present you the mementos. Yeah, please come, our volunteers. Sir, Ravi Shankar ji, please. Yeah. present to the chair, please. Yeah. Yeah. Let's give a good round of applause to the chair. Show me the names and go. Yeah. Dr. Shubhrat Sharma will receive, please. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Yeah. Yeah. May I request Kalachan Sanji to please present to the next co-chair. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Request Narpender Singh ji to please present the mementos. Please, please go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Request Professor Rima Panji also to please give the memento to one of the dignitaries. Go ahead, ma'am. Yeah. Professor N.P. Singh ji, please. Yeah. Yeah. You go with sir. Yeah. After Rima ji. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Go, go, go. Yeah. Yeah. Please suggest the name. Yeah. Yeah, they're waiting. Go ahead. N.P. Singh ji, please. Yeah. Read the name. Read the name. Dr. Anand Babu also will give to the rest. Yeah. Thank you. There's one more here, please. Yeah, yeah. Please go and change it. Please give it to Baba. Yeah. I'm sorry if the certificates were mixed up. Sorry. But they are correcting now. Yeah, please. Dear friends, we want to thank our chair, co-chairs, and all the panelists for doing an excellent, presentations and inspiring everyone. Yeah. Yeah, would you please step forward for a group photo, if you don't mind? Would you please step forward for a group photo? Kindly step forward for a group photo. Please hold on. There's one more small ceremony. A colleague from Bangladesh is here to express his fondness, appreciation, and gratitude to the WCDM team and others. So please stay on. It will be another 5 minutes. We won't hold you too long before your lunch. Okay. Another 5 minutes, then you can do your media band. There is one more small ceremony. Yeah, yeah, you can. But there will be some talk happening. Yeah. Professor Akbaruddin, can you come up slowly? Yeah. While the photo is being taken, we need you so we can complete it fast. Thank you very much. Who? I called, but he hasn't come. I called, Professor. Yeah, Ashoka Bija I called, but yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. I called, yeah.
Because then they leave. Just take the bite quickly.
No, just last 5 minutes. Professor Akbaruddin Ahmad from Bangladesh is here. He has a small message to Dr. Babu and a few of the members of the DMICS. Please come, Professor Akbaruddin, this side. You want to say a word now or last? Yeah, because we're running short of time. Yeah, it's working. Please.
Professor, all the academics over here, Dr. Ananda Babu, Mr. Ray, and the rest of the people who have come from all over the world, heartiest congratulations for a very successful WCDM. From the Policy Research Center in Bangladesh, we are trying to show our appreciation to Dr. Ananda Babu and some of the volunteers by giving some gifts to them. Thank you very much.
And we will also have a WCDM in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
We will.
Okay, I would like